have a working framework, a MOU, between the two agencies. Hawaiian Homelands clearly is exempt from zoning. OHA has the funding to underwrite the housing. We have some excellent models that are prototypes right here. The Hale Makana in Manapuli. We have already demonstrated it can happen, but we need to set that priority. When Hawaiian beneficiaries were polled, do you want a state-created sovereign nation? They said no, overwhelmingly in 1978 and again in 2016. What they didn't prioritize was affordable housing. We can do it. We're doing it now, but we don't have the political will. And that is why we need to make a change with our vote.
Thank you, Mr. Akina.
Thank you very much. I agree with Mililani. We can solve this problem. People might be surprised. There is more than enough land and financial resources to take care of all of the homelessness needs of Native Hawaiians. The problem is fraud, waste, and abuse. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs during the last 30 years has spent over $33 million and possibly close to $50 million pursuing its federal recognition scheme, and nothing has come of it. That money could have gone to providing for housing or helping with the financing of infrastructure on the Hawaiian homelands. So we have to make sure that the money that is there and the land that is there is used as it should be. But we also need to change the trustees who have been there too long. They've outlived the usefulness of their policies, and Mililani and I represent people who will bring fresh breath and political change on behalf of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and you can go first, Mr. Akina. Do you support, this is from the audience, do you support the 30-meter telescope? Yes or no, and why?
Hawaiians
1 minute.
Hawaiians have had a long history of valuing scientific discovery. In fact, we're here because Hawaiians considered it a sacred task to navigate by the stars. In fact, the pilots of the Hokulea learned their craft in the Bishop Museum Planetarium. So there's no conflict between what is sacred and what is scientific. The problem with the 30-meter telescope has more to do with the way OHA does business. OHA has used the 30-meter telescope and the protests surrounding it as an opportunity to try to extort more rent lease from the 30-meter telescope consortium. So regardless of how Hawaiians feel about the 30-meter telescope itself, I think we must, as trustees, be agreed to stop the kind of business model that extorts money from the public and causes public damage because it's not an honest process.
Thank you.
I do not support the 30-meter telescope. I only support development in this state that follows the law that we have down, not only in our Constitution, but statutes to ensure that our environment is protected and our culture is respected. I support the decision of the state Supreme Court after 7 years of waiting for them to implement, to protect the environment and our people's rights. Their refusal to do it should have been struck down. I am not getting the endorsement of the construction unions because when I met with them, they wanted me to endorse development at any cost. I refuse to do that.
Thank you. This is to Ms. Trask. Should OHA pursue a federally recognized sovereign state? Ms. Trask, you're first.
I've been very outspoken in my opposition to the ongoing effort of OHA to create and impose upon our people their own form of federal recognition. I support the U.S. policy. That's why we have 550 nations in this country. Only one is the federal government. The rest are the native Alaskan and Indian nations. We should have our place there. But all democracy comes from the people. It's not drafted in Washington or a group of Democrats proposing kana'i olovalu. The Hawaiian peoples are looking for responsible state agency action. And the beneficiaries themselves by poll have told OHA to work on education, housing, and poverty alleviation. And that is where we should go, instead of trying to usurp the right of the Hawaiian peoples and foist upon them some form of a political nation that is clearly not wanted and clearly inappropriate.
to pick up on what Mililani said, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs has conducted surveys of the Hawaiian people since its inception in 1978. Every one of those surveys showed that the Hawaiian people did not want OHA to be spending money on federal recognition, whether you call it the Akaka Bill or Kana'i Olovalu or Na'iapuni. Yet the trustees whom we elect kept that information from the public, and they still will not release the current survey information. Those surveys show that Hawaiians prefer that money instead to be spent on housing, jobs, education, and healthcare. And so the idea that a federally recognized Indian tribe is what the Hawaiians want is simply not true. Well, who wants it? The people who make a lot of money off of it want it. The people who will get land rights to develop in any way they want to against zoning laws, or perhaps the opportunity to have an exclusive gambling franchise here. The people at the top will benefit from that, not the Hawaiian people.
Thank you. Question one. This will be to you, Mr. Akina. What do you see as OHA's greatest challenge for the future?
I think the immediate challenge is becoming an institution that is transparent and accountable to the people. OHA is an instrument of the state. It exists because we, the people, want to do something good for the Hawaiian people. And so OHA needs to be accountable to the voters. That's why voters need to get involved. Whether you're Hawaiian or not, we need you to hold the trustees accountable and kick out people who are not doing good for Hawaii and put in people who are doing good. So the number one challenge is going to be transparency and accountability. As a result, should I become a trustee, one of the first things I will do is call for a complete audit of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, one that will look not only at the finances, but at the management, so that we can hold it accountable. Then beyond that, the next challenge will be for OHA to gain credibility in the eyes of the public, which I believe will happen as it pursues its mission and it shuts down the spending on political campaigns for federal recognition and uses the money to help the people.
Thank you.
I think
I'm sorry.
I think the biggest challenge, that we're facing at OHA is fiscal irresponsibility. Now, we've got a $400 million trust there and a large group of impoverished people in the most expensive and costly state in the union. The BKF report that came out last year said that OHA is bankrupting the trust in 9 years. They have a budget of $43 million annually. They spend $7.6 for 8,000 beneficiaries in our state. What happened to the rest of the $38 million that they're not spending on 292,000 Hawaiians? We need to get some fiscal policies in place at OHA, and we need to have a trustee budget and finance committee, which they decided to do away with 10 years ago.
Thank you. Last question. Out to you, Ms. Trask. What do you feel is the most important federal issue facing Native Hawaiians?
I think the most important federal issue is what is going on right now with this very bizarre media event called the Federal Recognition Initiative from Obama. I think that when you saw what happened when the Department of Interior hearings happened here a year and a half ago. The community was outraged. We are not going to become Indians. We need the federal government to realize that we need to have some responsible action on the part of the state. The federal government has a trust obligation to our peoples. Congress put it down in 150 federal measures. We need to have some federal corrective action here instead of having the federal government turn a blind eye to the waste and what I can only call white-collar crime. And I myself have gone to the State Ethics Commission and the OIP for violations of state ethics as well as sunshine law. We all need you to vote to clean it up. We need help. Find out what's happening. Do the right thing.
Thank you. Mr. Akina?
We don't need greater federal control over the affairs of the state of Hawaii, nor any people within the state of Hawaii. And that's what's going on with the Department of Interior's announcement of rules to recognize Hawaiians as a federal Indian tribe. We've already told you that every survey since 1978 shows the Hawaiians themselves don't want it. Those surveys also show that the non-Hawaiian population doesn't want it. The courts have already ruled in cases such as Akina versus the state of Hawaii that it needs to be shut down. And yet, we have a federal government that is trying to push an agenda where we need everyone to stand up. As Mililani said, we need everyone to vote. And as you look at Mililani and me, you're looking at the two races that you can vote on in the OHA election. I'm running at large for the whole state. Mililani is running for the Big Island. You can vote in both of these. And we humbly ask you to vote out the incumbents. Vote for us because we need new leadership in OHA, and we would be honored to be that leadership.
Thank you
very much.
Mr. Akina. This concludes the